Hello, it's Phillip Tylor speaking from Richmond Green Chambers in London. Today I'm looking at a book which has come to us from Elgar Publishing. It's an important book, one I found fascinating because I love legal history. It's The History of Law in Europe, an introduction. It's been written by two people, Bart, Wauters and Marco de Benito. Now, the reason I like this book, which is available, by the way, as a print version and also electronically and as an ebook, the purpose of this book is really to give people a good grounding, I think, as a general introduction to the history of how law has developed within Europe itself. I found it fascinating as a person who studied history for my A-levels, my GCEs, or my sort of hires, if you like. And then I certainly had some interest, although I did not do very much when I did my LLB, read for my law degree. Can I just say that history of the English legal system is very, very important, because obviously there is so much tradition and so much change which has taken place since certainly the Middle Ages in the way that we actually conduct our business, even though we wear the funny clothing and the wigs and the gowns, sort of wig like there, and the gowns and everything else. The fact of the matter is that it is actually steeped in historic values, and Europe to a certain extent is the same. Now, Elizabeth and I looked at this book. It's here, we'll have a look at it, and the title we've given our book review, A Refreshing Statement on Legal History and Highly Relevant for an Understanding of European Legal Systems Today. And I think it's quite important at a time when there is a lot of change taking place. We are leaving Europe, Britain is leaving Europe as the European Union, and the concepts that we've had of creating more of a unified European legal system are beginning to sort of look a bit frayed at the edges. However, you can understand that when you look at the book. Let's have a look at it. It's only a small book, by the way. There's a hardback. There's the front. There's the spine. And then there's the back. There's a bit of blurb on the back. You can probably see lots of quotes from people. But it's obviously a popular book. But it goes back into the history very nicely indeed. It runs to 190 pages. You can see the index at the back by page numbering. It's quite a detailed index, which I thought was very helpful. We are going back into the annals of history, into the mists of the past. There's the index there. And then you can see the back of the book, further reading. There's a lot of further reading that is mentioned, which is quite useful because this is only touching the surface. In what follows, the interested reader will find a non-exhaustive list of references to works that provide more information. Well, naturally, there's a huge amount that's available. The front of the book, let's just show you the front. There's the main page at the front, and then after that, there's a very nice little dedication, which I will leave you to read there. And then information about how to find it online is given there. Now, the content section, you can see how it starts off. It starts off with Roman Britain, the early Middle Ages. Then it goes to the late Middle Ages, the early modern age, the bourgeois age, and then the common law, and basically to end it. And it's done, as it says, and I'll say it again later, done in a chronological order. Then there's an introduction, there's an epilogue at the back, which is effectively a conclusion. The introduction is quite interesting, I have to say. It goes through the basic reason of why the book's written, and I'll mention again a little bit about that. And then you've got the structure, Justinian starting things off, kicking things off with Roman law. You can see the structure of the book there. There's a little bit of subheadings all the way through there. There's no footnoting, which is quite useful. It's actually a book which I found, you see there's the middle of it, I found you could just sit down and read it. And I think that's rather good, because one of the problems with footnotes is they do tend to bog you down a bit, because you'll then be cross-referring to what you want, whereas I found this quite a nice book to flow through. What do we say about it? We say this: for such a short book, this particular title is a pleasure to read for anybody who has an interest in both history and the law, as the introduction explains. It describes the different ways in which law has been understood in the context of Europe's political, economic, social and cultural development. And the independent publisher, Edward Elgar, who are based in Cheltenham, They've maintained a tremendous scholastic record, I think, here, with what is a complex and detailed examination of what the authors Bart, Wauters and Marco de Benito modestly call an introduction, although it's more than just that, and it's not encyclopedic, of course. The important thing about it is to give you a feel and to try to put into perspective, which I think they do, the sort of the short history, if you like, of the law in Europe, and that's exactly what they succeed in doing. We feel it's both a comprehensive and an accessible book for all, and the writers offer what they describe, and I'll give you a quote here, as a concise synthesis of the evolution of the law in Western Europe from ancient Rome to the beginning of the 20th century. And it's clear, again, from the chronological structure, which you see in the contents section, that it will be of great benefit to historians as well as to the general public. Now, what's on offer here is a quick zip round a special area of European history, which has often been, I think, misunderstood because of the politics of the time. There's an awful lot of politics, and it does tend to be more left of centre, frankly, which is probably a good thing. But at the same time, there is a lot of misunderstanding, and I think this helps trying to set the record straight, because the writers give us what they rather amusingly call a readily graspable and sound structure, which is what you've got. There are 6 chapters which are split into parts and organised according to the civil law system and the criminal and the common law systems which we have encountered. And the purpose is to build each chapter around the evolution of the 4 recognised jurisprudential sources of the law. That's legal science, legislation, courts and customary law, and then set chronologically against the relevant historical context. And it works very well for the reader too. And remember, of course, that custom, I mean, it's only a suggestion in my mind, custom certainly is what has created the common law in England and Wales, but of course it's also something that's bound up with mercantile law. That's international trade, and that's been with us for very many centuries. There's nothing new in the way in which we conduct our contractual relationships internationally. Then throughout this book then, there's an in-depth presentation of the key determinants in European legal history, as Wauters and de Benito describe them, giving the readers an understanding of how the law arose and evolved in Europe as a shared language, of which its different national laws, they say, are but dialectic expressions. Well, it's an interesting way of putting it, but the fact is that we've got a whole merging of different sequences of views, if you like, which have come up with the mishmash of laws that we currently have. What we've been trying to do in the European Union is to get some standards, and I think we've been quite successful, starting with international trade, and I think even with Brexit that will probably still work fairly well for everybody. And with possibly the unique exception, perhaps of English common law itself, whose peculiarity is likewise due to the accidents of history, that's William the Conqueror probably, which are themselves explored, that we have to say that the common law stands out as the best system the world has ever seen when it comes to a fair legal system structured within the rule of law, which dates back at least to 1215 and the sealing of Magna Carta. Let me conclude by saying that what is well described as an elegant comparative approach, which is what this book is described as, it's a short and a quick to read title which we think will be popular with European law students, as it's now generally compulsory to cover that subject if you're an undergraduate, and to academics who are looking for a concise yet academically sound account of the history of law in Europe. And that is exactly what you're getting here, as Elgar have not failed us with this erudite and informative book, and I'd like to thank them very much. They do make our lives a lot easier with the work that they produce for us, and certainly for people who are scholars. These books are a great boon, so thank you. The publication date is 2017, and the book's available in a print edition and as an e-book. Let's just have a look at it again. There's the front. There's an interesting, I don't know where the pictures come from, it doesn't actually say, but there's an interesting picture on the front. It doesn't actually tell me who the picture is of, but it looks to me like it's probably Justinian. But I may well be wrong. There's the book anyway, there's the back of it. So see, just opening it in the middle, the early modern age, there you can see that's the middle of the book there. It's talking about humanists. It's looking about a whole range of studies there. And then you go on the School of Salamanca. So you see there's a wide mixture here. It is very European. Customary law, here we go, early modern age. If we go a little bit further in, the bourgeois age, Switzerland and the codes. There we go, we've got that. Then you've got the common law. Origins of English common law, Anglo-Saxon period, then the conquest and so forth. The introduction of royal justice and so on. And then the Chancery division as well. I think it's a treasure, this little book, and I was delighted to be able to review it. I'd like to thank everybody concerned very much indeed for producing it. And it's a book that's well worth a read. It's not that difficult to read either. You need a little bit of knowledge, but this will help a lot. Thank you to all. Bye-bye.